picture. Wow, that's really loud. It's been a while since I've been up here. I just want to point out the last meeting I was at, I was not the main speaker and the room was full. And so I appreciate those of you that showed up. We're going to raise your split to 100%. Congratulations. So we got a couple of special announcements. First off, I want to talk about Bras for a Cause. If you guys remember about 3 years ago, our own Mike Rasmussen, boy, that was something to see. He did Bras for a Cause, and it was fantastic. Tyson, Jason, and Daryl, I believe, are the three from Signature. And Robert. That's right, Robert. Luskin, right?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, that'll be fun too. So they're going to be asking for contributions that go to Take Me on Vacation, which is an amazing charitable organization that sends cancer survivors and cancer victims on vacation to help with some of that stress of going through such a horrific process. And we have another. Ellie did that. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It was fun to watch. So Sherry KK, you've got some booze to talk about.
Good morning, everybody. I'm doing booze for boobs, $1 a line. I'll collect it through the meeting. I'll stay after the meeting. All these donations go towards American Cancer Society fighting breast cancer. And all this fundraising is all before the big Making Strides walk, which is October the 30th. October the 30th, we meet at Red Rock at 7 o'clock in the morning, Lazy Dogs, right behind Red Rock. We meet there, pass out t-shirts, and off we go. I have flyers sitting in front of you guys. You can go on for the walk. You can go right on this QR code and register for the walk. But this is how we keep track of t-shirts. So it's a lot of fun. It's short and sweet. It's not difficult. People come with their wagons, their dogs. It's a great little event. So prior to that, it's all about raising funds. So the booze for boobs is our first thing. Today we have a Cuervo tequila. We have sangria. And we have this beautiful Moscato and a bottle of Tito's vodka. So you buy a line from me. Actually, you can't wait till at the end because that's when we're going to call off the winner. We do a little random number checking. And so I'm trying, last year we raised $1,000 for, I know maybe I'm repeating myself, but that's what we did last year. I'm trying to do that again this year. So my other really quick event, I'll try to make it short because I know we got a lot of stuff for you guys to talk about, is I have set up this luncheon at BG Bistro. It's at Tropicana and Jones. It's on October 8th. It's $30. You can register right here on the QR code, and it takes you right to Venmo to Sherry Kuzmanovich to pay. And just so you know, it's going to be a simple lunch. It probably won't be, Bulgarian food, although it's a Bulgarian restaurant. We have fabulous raffle prizes. I'm not going to tell you all of them because I like the mystery, but we have, thanks to one of our brokers, also, oh wait, stop. I forgot to mention, this luncheon is being sponsored by our very own Prosperity Living. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Prosperity. So Janet's son has given us an entry to Omnia at Caesar's Palace for 4 people with 4 free drink tickets. That's like huge, you guys. You know what that costs? It's like $1,000 value. And we have a few others. So if you do come to the luncheon, make sure you bring cash for the raffles. It's going to be we're going to really do it good. So, and also you can register right here. Again, on the QR code, you can register and pay with Venmo right through that. So any other questions, call me. You can always call me and I will text you information if you're not, for those folks not here, 702-338-4174. You can text me, I'll send you the QR code, I'll do it however you want. But it's going to be a fabulous luncheon. And I got to mention the bake sale. I'm sorry.
Got you.
I forgot about the bake sale. The bake sale will be October the 11th here. And if you want, ladies, gentlemen, you have baked goods you'd like to donate, all the funds go towards American Cancer Society Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. And that's it.
Let's give Sherry a round of applause.
Bake sale, not get baked. I caught on to that one too. So we've got some, yes,
Can I get a minute?
I guess. everyone's doing.
Thank you for Annie for reminding me, but
4174.
VA Rep has a big event, our big fundraiser of the year coming up on October 8th. I'm going to bring in some flyers before the meeting's over. It is our annual poker run. We raise money for local veterans. It's a great, great time. We are 5 different stops. We are starting the event at Custom Jacks over in Henderson, and we are ending it over at the Pioneer Saloon down in Good Springs. Great time. It's $25 for a motorcycle. 2 riders is $35, and a car, I drive my car, is $35. So
But he wears a leather jacket when he's in there.
yeah, I wear a leather jacket and my mask. Anyway, I hope you can make it. I'm going to bring in some flyers shortly, but I truly, October 8th, we start at 8 o'clock. It's an all-day deal. It's a great time, and again, we raise a lot of money for our local veterans. So thank you, Andy.
Very cool. Anybody else before I go on to any topics? John, I'm gonna wait on.
Thank you. This is not necessarily real estate related, but it's a great idea for a gift. The 49th annual Greek Food Festival is next weekend. We do give money to charity. We're giving it to autism, suicide prevention, and the third one is homeless youth. So those are all 3 pretty good ones. I have $25 coupon books that are worth $34. They're great for you to go to the festival and as well as to give to your clients. And there's also a drawing for $25,000. We normally give away a car, but we couldn't buy one this year. We just couldn't get one. So we're giving away $25,000. We printed 1,000 tickets. They're $100 a piece, but until the end of this week, you can get 4 for $300. So basically,
When is it?
It is the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, which is not this weekend, but the following.
Where is that?
At the Greek Orthodox Church at Hacienda between Jones and Torrey Pines.
You have me a food festival.
Yep, and there's shuttle parking. Don't let the traffic scare you. Park remotely. The shuttle bus will pick you up and drop you off. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay. I forgot what was next. Hold on. You got one too? Yeah? No, we'll do that in just a second. So before we get on to wants and needs, let's bring in Nikita with Prosperity. Give her a round of applause.
Hi, me again. So last time I went through a market update, so I thought we'd do that again because we've had some interesting things come out. The first thing is that every year the Federal Reserve has a meeting in Jackson Hole. They talk about all of the different things that they plan on doing or things that have been happening in the market. So at this meeting, afterward, Powell spoke on Friday, and it's been, I nicknamed it at least, and I think many people have, this pain speech. And the reason being is he has said he knows that his measures are causing pain to the consumers with increased pricing in homes and everywhere else, but it's necessary for price stability. In the market update sheets that I have handed out, he specifically said, while higher interest rates, slower growth, and soft labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are unfortunate costs to reduce inflation, but a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. So the Fed is aware that this is affecting the economy, but they know they need to do it for price stability purposes. One other important point of his speech was that he alluded to the fact that there's going to be another 75 basis point hike next week at the Federal Reserve meeting on the 20th and 21st. Specifically, he said, at some point, as the stance of monetary policy tightens further, it likely will become appropriate to slow the pace of increases. So if you read into that, it says it likely will become necessary to slow it down, but right now that's not that time. So we're probably looking at a 50 or 75 basis point at the time of this speech. This morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the CPI numbers were released, which is also on the second page. And what was expected was that it was going to drop to 8.1%, but it didn't. It only went to 8.3%, which now, because of that, they're really thinking that the Fed is going to do a 75 basis point hike instead of a 50 basis point hike because inflation didn't decrease as much as they thought it would decrease. If you look at the last section in there, you'll see, I put in there just so you guys can kind of see what I look at when I'm pricing mortgages. When I decide, am I going to lock or am I not going to lock? I look at the UMBS, which is the mortgage-backed securities, and I also look at the 10-year treasury. They don't technically are not tied to each other, but they both have long-term duration. So what happens in the U.S. Treasury market affects rates just as much as the mortgage-backed securities do. So when I'm looking at this chart this morning at 6:30 a.m., the UMBS was down 73 basis points. The 5% in that chart represents what the investors are buying these bonds at, and the 99.67 is what the price is, right? The Treasury was actually up a little bit. They didn't sell off too hard this morning when looking at the market. But with this inflation number and the expectation of the Fed raising a 75 basis point, we can see that rates probably might go up today in the next coming days, okay? Right now, Mortgage Daily News has the national average at 5.98%, which the last time I did this speech to you guys, it was at 5.25%. So that's a lot higher in just 1 month. So we've had a lot happen. One other interesting thing is on September 6, 2022, there was a random day where the bonds were selling off pretty hard. The 10-year treasury, it sold off a full percentage point, which is pretty big. When that happened, rates went up, and that's kind of how we got pushed up a little bit above that 5.2%. And so just so you know why this is important, as this happens, as things sell off and the price decreases, rates increase because there's that inverse relationship between the bonds. I know that this is probably a lot of information in a short time, but if anyone wants to know more about how the markets work, I'm happy to sit down and talk with you about it. But these are the things going on in the market right now. Next week will be very telling to what interest rates will do. Okay. So one other point I wanted to bring up, it's not about the market update, but the conforming loan limit for 2023 has raised to $715,000, which means, which means you can have a purchase price of about higher purchase price, guys. It means you can have a purchase price of about $752 with 5% down. Okay. Now, for the fun part, I'm going to announce the winners of our football card, if you guys have submitted those.
It probably wasn't Jason, I'm pretty sure.
What happened? What I was
No, you're good, we're good, take another line.
It's free to enter, just make sure you submit it to whatever lender you're working with. If you're not working with someone, I'm happy to submit it for you. So the winner of the $25 gift card is Kelly Oster, if she's here. We'll give that to her. And then we had a two-way tie for second place, and that was Tom Blanchard.
Yay! Tom Blanchard's actually at Stanford.
Okay.
He's not preaching or teaching. He just happens to hang out there right now.
And Jansen Taylor.
Jansen Taylor! I think he's here.
And third place is Christy Stark.
Yay! Way to keep it all in house. Thank you very much. Give it up. Okay, real quick, we're gonna go through wants and needs. Anyone have a new listing? Of course you have new listings, there's 20,000 of them. Anybody have new listings or new buyer needs you wanna talk about?
I've got 4-bedroom, 2-bath, $465,000 in beautiful Henderson, right off of amazing Boulder Highway. I've got another house.
Maybe like the downtown strip.
I've got another house right around the corner off Boulder Highway as well.
We're not gonna
about 365 goes live today. Beautiful little 2-bedroom, 3-bath, gorgeous house. And the rest are little houses.
Hello?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
So I have a condo coming up with Fix Center. Right now the contractor is going there today at via 1-bedroom, 1-bath. 843 square foot is going to be listed at $699,900.
Still fits under that conforming loan limit. Anybody else? Okay. Yeah, 1-bedroom, 1-bath.
So I have a single story by Floyd Land Park, actually past it, Sac Canyon out there. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,100 square feet for $535 right now, and it has paid solar, like it's paid off, you own it, you don't have any monthly fee, it's not leased or anything. So power's $13.44 a month.
$13? Yeah, well, because just
No, MB Energy requires you to pay that.
$13 connection fee. It'll be $14 with inflation next month.
Yeah.
I have a two-story, 1,480 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It's right off Craig and Tenaya. Gated community with community pool. It's 360. It is a one-car garage though. But it's a darling little house. Going live today.
Anybody else? Anybody have anyone that wants to develop a community, like you could be the mayor or the king of your own community? I have 600 acres in White Hills, Arizona. 600 acres. I don't know where I get these listings either, but we actually have it as a co-marketing agreement,
I have a
right?
theory of how he gets these, but I won't mention it at the same time.
Everybody's got to make a dollar somewhere, okay?
Where in the state, like approximately? Like
It's just over the dam. Over the dam, yeah. Small jump.
It's right next
over
to
the
Boulder
dam.
Valley.
Yeah. The only reason I bring this up, and let me put it out there, if you were to buy this parcel, for the $2.3 million they're asking for it, and you could spin off one piece to one great developer that was going to build anything you want, a solar farm, a pot house, I don't care. But you spin off that one piece and it makes the entire rest of the development valuable. So I just want to put it out there. If you have any interested parties, please reach out to us. An entire community. How far off the highway? It's just over there.
Okay.
You can see. No, there's actual roads and everything. It comes right off the freeway.
Is there water?
There is water. There is a water line that flows right through the property.
It's a creek, right?
No. Would you believe snow runoff?
I told you, I know how he gets these things.
No, it's actually an industrial water line that goes through the middle of the property, so you really could bring in water. It's just not stuck for the property, but it does run through it, so. Let's not get into phonetics. 2.3. Okay, so our first topic, before we jump into it, let's give a round of applause to our amazing broker, Tanner. It has been about 6.5 weeks since we had a broker panel, and I did take your emails and messages seriously, and so now they're back. And so we're going to talk about a whole list of topics that have come up from you guys as the agents. And so the first one has come up several times, and Todd wanted to talk about it first, and that's the real estate inflation we're seeing in the marketplace. So what do you want to talk about when it comes to real estate inflation?
I love giving Chris a topic and he has no idea what it means because it bugs the hell out of him for a whole day. He's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, real estate inflation? So who's an inflation expert in here? Anybody tell me, Jason, what is inflation?
Inflation is usually when your money is not worth quite as much as it used to be.
Okay, so how does that equate, and I'll ask this to all of you, to real estate? Whose money is not worth as much money as it was before?
The buyers for the last 2 years.
The buyers from the last 2 years? Okay. Or Chris thinks the sellers?
My seller's money isn't worth what it used to be.
Well, they're going to be getting money though, so when they sell, they get the money, right?
Not as much.
All right, so has anybody been asked this question recently? What do you think about the market?
Oh, yes.
How is the market?
It's amazing. What have you heard?
What's going on in the market? Is anybody getting this? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so everyone's concerned about what's going on in the market. You can explain it to people as just like inflation. Who causes inflation, by the way?
That's it. Open-ended question.
Keep your political views to yourself, all right? So here's what I want you to understand. When people ask you this question, the question isn't, everyone's fishing for the fact that they think the market's crashing. They think the market's going away. Housing is going to be worth $0 in at least the next 7 days. Like it's bad, right? And not every single agent, 80% of real estate agents are telling all of their clients, "Oh my gosh, the market's crashing. You need to do this, you need to do that. It's going away. It's going away." We got to stop that conversation. That's not what's really happening out there. It's just like the inflation we talked about with the government. I mean, what's really happening and what gets talked about are two totally different things. Okay, so here's what I want to help you understand. What caused housing inflation?
Surplus of buyers in the marketplace.
A surplus of buyers in the marketplace, which caused what? It caused sellers and all of you, and when I say you, I mean real estate agents, and I'm a real estate agent, I'm pointing at myself, told all of your sellers To do what with their house when they put it on the market?
List with me.
List it with you at what price? $20,000 or $30,000 above the current market value. Did any of you do that? Don't lie, I did it.
That was 50,000.
Right? 50, 60, right? Guys, why did we do this? Market would allow us to do it, right? And this is the inflation. So the price reductions that you're seeing right now, they're not, the market's not decreasing.
Created the inflation.
Absolutely you did. And so did I, and so did they, and so did every seller that's selling their home, because that was the right thing to do at the time. But what you need to understand is the market isn't crashing. It's coming back to where it should have been prior to everybody raising above what the houses are selling for. So the inflation I'm talking about is sellers and agents inflated the price of homes by $20,000 and $30,000 and $40,000 because they could. So the price reductions are not the market crashing. Stop telling people that if you're telling people that. It's the market settling back to where it should have been when they listed their home originally. Now, if we start seeing prices go another 10% below that, that's when we can start talking about the market is going down. The market's not going down. The market is pretty flat. And anybody who overpriced their home because it was the right thing to do is just getting it back in line where it should have been when they listed it originally. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions? I get this question in my office literally 4 times a day. Hey, what do you think about the market? Are you asking about the inflation or are you asking about the market? Yeah. Is the market crashing? No, the market's not crashing. It is just settling back to where it should have been originally. Okay?
So would you call that a correction versus a recession?
I call it a settlement. I mean, I think it's settling. I would call it could be a correction, I guess. I think a correction is more like after things have sold and maybe they've sold for more than they should and the market actually gets below where things are selling. But I think things are still selling where they should. They're just not priced where they were. That makes sense. We're lowering the price down to where things, we're now looking at comps going, well, the last one sold for 400, we should list at 400. Instead of the last one sold at 400, we should list at 440, right? Because that was the inflation in our market.
Zillow was correct. That was inflation. No, I'm not giving a dig or anything, but Zillow's market evaluation estimate of the home was actually correct in many cases when you look at it, because it was overinflated because of the way that they structure their comps. I mean, when were estimates correct before then? Never.
No, they weren't. So just when people ask you the question, it's the market's not crashing. It's just settling back to where it should have been before sellers and agents priced homes well above the market to begin with.
So I'm going to ask this question to both of the ladies flanking you on either side. You guys have been through multiple markets. Janet, you've been in the business how long? I think you just celebrated how many years that we should congratulate you on with LVR?
Well, it was 30, but that is not accurate because actually I started in '83, but I had a break because my husband
I started in '83 too.
insisted I moved. So
That's when I was born, yeah.
they're counting from '92.
But congratulations on 30 years.
Yes.
And so, give a round of applause. There was a break in the.
Okay, go ahead, ask the question.
Forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, have you ever seen a market with such inflation in prices that you've lived through before?
Many times. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm reading a book that says people like stories, they can relate to it. So I had a buyer from out of state who had been here and hadn't found anything they really liked, and they called me one day and said, we found this new construction and we want you to go over there and put our name on the list. It was a really hot market and it was a really hot day. And so I go over there. I cannot even get in the sales office for the track. Agents are lined up outside the door. So I'd been there about 15, 20 minutes, standing in line, sweating. And somebody from inside came out and said, listen up agents, listen up buyers, we are raising all our prices $10,000 across the board. So I called my agents, my clients, and I said, they just raised the price on everything $10,000. You still want me to stand here? Yes. So I'm standing in line, probably another 30, 40 minutes goes by. Somebody comes, I still haven't gotten inside the office yet. And somebody else comes out and says, just so you know, we've raised our prices another 10,000. Not the first 10,000 we told you about 30 minutes ago, but another 10,000. So in less than an hour's time, I've seen the prices jump up $20,000.
Wow.
And I called my clients and I said, are you still in? They said, no.
Did you call them on a flip phone or a brick So I love that you told that story, because when I got into the business in 2004 and 5, before I got in, that market appreciation was crazy like that, and I actually got paid to sit at new home sites for new home raffles. And so I don't know why they would do this to people, but the raffle would be at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get $1,000 to sit there and wait for the number to come up, so that I could call the agent and say, hey, your raffle ticket's been pulled, you have 30 minutes to get down here with your client's check. And so that's how crazy things were going. I went to one at Turnberry, and the guy had gotten a reservation, which is where you would sign a contract that you're going to buy the unit. You didn't have to close on it then or do any paperwork or anything major, but you were now the buyer of that unit. In the elevator right down at the bottom of the unit, he got a $100,000 check from somebody in the elevator to take his reservation. That's how crazy the market was. And then 5 years later, when I got into the business, it just went away. You know? Fun for you. Same story? You were there too? Flip phone and all? Okay. Anything else you guys want to add on the market? The only thing I'll tell you what I saw, and this is kind of troubling in some ways, when the market started to change at the beginning of August and the end of July, I noticed everyone had that deer in the headlights look. Like, should I still be in real estate? Will these properties still go through? Do you think my escrows will close? And then 15% of all of escrows nationally canceled. And everyone was like, oh my God, the bottom's falling out, right? And I started to notice people talking on Facebook, and everyone would cater to what? Bad news.
Yeah.
And I saw other respected entities in the marketplace start to talk bad news all the time. I don't know if it was to get interest or to get people or to get, you know, just the message out there, but it seems like they wanted the worst to happen, right? Because the worst sometimes sells the most. And I think they were trying to sell newspapers. And then all of a sudden at the end of August, people started to realize that, oh my God, I still have to have a place to put my stuff. And I still have to have a place to live. And these escrows started to come back. I mean, we must have had as a company a massive cancellation rate. And then all of these escrows started piling back in. And now we're kind of getting back to, okay, I think we can figure this out. Things make sense. We'll go forward and buy property again. And so I've talked to agents all around the country. They seem to have the same thing that happened, except for the specialty markets, but this too will pass. So what I didn't expect, and something we're going to talk about right now, is a dirty word, short sales. Who here, just from a show of hands, sit down, Todd. Who here has ever done a short sale as part of their business? That is amazing, because that's probably 70% of the room, and I expected it to be 50 or 40%. And so I actually got into the team side of it, because this guy I knew did a lot of short sales, and I was doing these things called REOs. And I was like, this REO thing won't go on for forever. I better learn a new skill. And so I wanted to find the best person in the marketplace that knew short sales. And funny enough, that was Todd Barton. And so people were going to him to take classes on what a short sale was, what the process looked like. I mean, like, he would stand in front of a class of 100, 120 agents, and they would sit there and listen to him. I was surprised. But he became quickly one of the biggest experts in that market. And so this last week, 3 short sales have come across my desk that I've helped agents with, and I think it's time to have that conversation again. So Todd, what in description is a short sale? Coming to a theater near you.
What, are you asking what is a short sale?
What is a short sale?
Short sale is when a seller has to sell, not wants to sell, but has to sell. And they owe more on the property than you can get in the market. And you go to the bank and ask the bank if they'd be willing to do us a favor and take less money than what they're owed. So taking a short sale on the property. So you get the bank to agree to take less money than what is owed to them. And the key to it is there's two sides. They can do a short sale, agree to that, and make the seller sign a promissory note saying that they'll pay back whatever the difference was. And then you can also get them get short sales done where the bank just forgives the outstanding balance.
In your experience, how did someone end up most commonly in a short sale? Okay, that's phonetically true. Yeah, they owe more money than they have. But how did they end up in that position? What happened in the market?
Well, the market settled a little bit. I mean, people bought above. I mean, back in when I was doing short sales, the group of people that I was in front of the most was Metro, fire people, the emergency people, because when they bought their homes, they bought all of their homes on overtime. So most of the Metro officers, most of the firemen, most of all the EMS people would buy homes because they got an enormous amount of overtime every month, and they could use that to buy homes, right?
And investment.
I never got in front of the strippers, just so that we're clear about that. I never held that class.
They were always behind
all right?
it.
He gets an A for the day. Okay, let's put the wheels
So
back.
what I want to point out here is that the reason they got into short sale situations is because they bought a home that they couldn't afford on their salaries. They bought it on their overtime money, and when the market kind of went away, they no longer had any overtime, and they could no longer pay the bill. And because of that, that's how they. And I think the lending rules have now changed substantially to kind of try to help that. They don't get to count as much overtime as they used to be able to count, and so that's how people got in.
Go ahead.
I also think that a lot of what happened was that people were getting ARMs at that time, so adjustable rate mortgages, and so their rates started going higher, significantly higher, 5 years after they purchased, and so there was nothing else they could do. They couldn't afford the payment anymore. They had to sell their home, and that's what caused it. There was probably hundreds of thousands of ARMs that had come up where people were just like, I can't afford this. And
Just slap them right in the face.
yeah,
Exactly.
and then they got a notice from the bank because they couldn't make their mortgage payment, and so they looked at their options, and voila, Todd was there.
So what I noticed the fact that same thing that happened in this market, we had massive increases in equity, 50, 60% increases in the property's equity. I mean, and that would happen sometimes in a month. We had one time in Summerlin where one zip code in Summerlin appreciated 45% in 1 month. And so the crazy thing about that, when you have a bunch of money tied up in your house, what do? Burn the house down, take the insurance. No, you refi the property. You get a line of credit, you get a HELOC. And so all of these specialty loan products came out, and people took those products, and what did they do with the money? Sherwin, we know what you did with the money. You had a good time, right? But the whole thing is, they went and bought TVs, cars, RVs, boats, second, third, fourth investment properties, high-rise properties where they couldn't afford the HOA payment, right? And it was okay, because every month my equity was gaining, and so it's not a problem, right? It kind of reminds me of cryptocurrencies in some way. Did you see the thing with Elon Musk where he's trying to explain what Dogecoin is on Saturday Night Live? You gotta watch that. It's the best thing on YouTube you'll ever see. Anyway, so the whole point of it is that theoretically they were taking out all of this equity everywhere that they could go, and they over-leveraged themselves. And they were surprised that the property went down in value because the market settled, and then it crashed. But the whole point was they had equity, they had a good position, they had a payment they could make at one point, but something corrected them out of it. And so what we're seeing right now in this marketplace is people have a bunch of money. And now it's not as easy to get to it as it was before. But are loan restrictions changing? Are they finding ways to get people to the equity on their property? Absolutely. And so because of that, I think we're coming back into a market where you're going to have to deal with short sales. Now, how long did a short sale take when you first started doing it? He's still got one he's working on.
6 or 7 months. We had to wait for all the banks to put the people in place that could manage and process the short sales. At one time, Bank of America, I went to a training with
They had people in place,
a
they
lady.
still couldn't do it.
They hired 15,000 employees at one time just to do short sales. All right, so the banks, the problem was so big that the banks just couldn't deal with the processing of the paperwork. We would. I got you. This is back in the day. And Amy, by the way, Amy was she was way more than my TC. She was the world. She was
Now, if I would've said that,
she
it
was
would've been
married,
different.
she was married then too, and I still mad at her, because that's how I met him. So, well, here's how it went. We had a bookcase against the wall that had 1-inch binders in it, and everybody would give us their paperwork, and there's hundreds of pieces of paper, bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, all the things that the banks needed, and they were in those binders, and the only way to get it to the bank was to walk it over to the fax machine and run 120 pages through the fax machine. And then call the bank the next day, and they would say, oh, you know what, we ran out of paper, we don't have it, could you send it again? Like literally,
2 million home loans and they had one fax number.
literally, there's one person trying to manage this at the bank and it just wasn't working. So the biggest challenge in the beginning was getting everybody on board on what needed to happen. It actually got pretty smooth kind of towards the end, as it always typically does. Let me point out the difference between that market and today's market, because I've talked about inflation of homes, and that's kind of what happened back then. One of the major differences between then and now is one thing. More than 80% of the country back then had zero equity in their home. They had ARMs, they had interest-only loans, right? They had no equity. They got in with no money down. Basically, they would say, if you can fog a mirror, you can buy a house. We don't need any money. We don't need to find out where you work. We just need you to tell us how much you make. More than 80% of the country did not have equity back then. So if you don't have equity and you're paying a payment that you can't afford, what are you doing? You're getting the hell out. That's what you're doing, right? You're just walking away. The difference today is, guys, more than 80% of the country has equity, and they're not going to walk away from it quite as easily as they did back then. Chris is correct. It's harder to get to it. There are ways to get to your equity if you need to get it, and we might see some short sales, but it's a good time. I mean, 6 o'clock in the morning, start calling the East Coast, and as the day goes on, by 6 o'clock at night, you're talking to Hawaii. That is just how the process would work every single day.
Yeah, something on that, Jason.
Oh, I was going to say, it would be a good idea to keep your relationship with your Bank of America people for them. Bank of America has a new loan that's out, without going into details, that there's going to be a lot of short sales coming next year.
100% financing again, right? Yes. Yeah. So, Todd,
100% really not to keep that relationship.
Todd makes a really good point, and the point of it is, no matter what happened, I mean, we've been looking at this for a while. The REO conventions are back, REO agents are back into the marketplace. 4% of the market was distressed sales last year. And so 4% of 40,000 homes is how many homes? 1,600 homes. Anyone here sells 1,600 homes? If I got just 10% of that market, I'd be one of the top agents in the marketplace, right? 160 homes. And so my whole point in bringing this up, that you have to have a skill in the marketplace, and you have to start thinking about where the market could go so that you can position yourself for that business. Vonda, I want to talk to you as a top producing agent in a short sale market. You dealt with short sales and REOs. What would you tell them? How do you get that business? How do you deal with that business? What should they be thinking about?
So the first place that we started was the NODs. I mean, I went to every REO conference there was for 9 months straight, and then finally got a hard account. So that's how I did that. But for the short sale stuff, you just, if there's NODs out there, which there are, start making those phone calls, start knocking on doors, start sending out emails. I mean, we have more access to people than we ever have before. So we can get their email addresses, we can find out who their uncles, their aunts, their cousins, their boyfriends or ex-boyfriends or whatever are, and we can get their contact information. And so you start going down that rabbit hole, you'll get a hold of someone, right? I was having a conversation with someone on my team yesterday that said, I've got the script, and it's like, hey, we noticed that the bank filed an NOD. Don't start there. Start with, how can I help you? Or knock on the door. Hey, here's a few options for you at this point. I understand that you've got an NOD that's been filed against you. You have options, right? And list those out. And that's really how we started trying to figure it out. The other thing I did was I educated a lot of people, so similar to what Todd did, but on the opposite end. He went to clients to talk to clients about how to do short sales. I taught agents how to do short sales. And so we went from beginning to end. Here's what you need. Here's the paperwork that you are going to be looking for. Here's the documentation. Here's the phone numbers that you got to call for the banks, and blah, 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 blah. Some banks are a lot easier to work with. A lot of agents forgot too that just because the client has an NOD on the first, there might be a second, and that might be a totally different bank. There might be a third, and that might be a totally different bank. And so when you start with one, you do all of them. I mean, there's just,
Would you say that if I'm an agent who's brand new and I've never done a short sale and my client has to do one and I'm sitting here in the middle of negotiating, I'm acting outside of my field of expertise?
Yes.
Yep.
There's a heck of a room.
so
What would you suggest?
yes and no. I think that because there's several options, you're giving them like, hey, this is where I can help you,
Yeah.
right? And you're not negotiating anything with the bank. You're just you're pushing paperwork, right?
Sure, I'm paperless now, but yeah.
Yeah, but you're pushing paperwork to the bank saying, here's what you requested, here's what the client wants, right? Was that your question?
You got there in a roundabout way, but the whole point I think is that we have experts in the company that can help you through that, and there's services that can help you through that. So don't try to go it on your own, because I would hate to be the reason my client lost their house. And I'm going to tell you, I was there in situations, and all of us were, where the client did lose the house, and we did everything right. And what's scary now, and here's what I'm more afraid of in the marketplace. Do you think the bank will foreclose when they find out you have $80,000 in equity that they could take advantage of? Of course they will. And you're in a marketplace right now where you can't sell your home in 30 seconds, right? Is that concerning? No. I'm a little concerned that I can't sell that fast if I'm underwater, or if I'm not making my payment, or any of those things happen. But the whole point now is there's more aggression on the bank side to be able to flip that product very easily, because there's people out there who will buy it right away.
Get more
right?
to do it too, since they don't want to get to that same level of equity.
Exactly. Todd, what other suggestions do you have for agents that are going to get in the short sale business?
You got to get in with both feet. I mean, if you're going to do it, you got to do it. You got to set up systems. There's no way to manage a short sale once in a while. It's an everyday task that you've got to be on top of. I would come in the office at 6 a.m. I would literally start calling the East Coast, and back then you had to call the bank, you had to be on hold, you had to get hung up on 2 or 3 times. There were several times where we would have 4 or 5 people in the office on the same phone call, on hold, on the same line, because we knew the only way to get through was to clog up their system. Right, so we had to be the next 5 people in line, because when they hung up on me, they'd go to the next phone, they'd go to the next phone, right? So you just have to be, resilient, I guess. You just got to be ready for the fight. It's going to be a fight. It's a good fight, because you're going to try to help somebody get out of it. The bank's not going to want to, the bank is always going to tell you no. No, 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 no. You have to look past that. You got to go to the next person in line. There's lots of things. You asked, are we outside of our expertise if we've never done one? I mean, I never did one at one point either, and I didn't really have a choice. The first one I ever did was for my mom. And so it was like I had to not only had to get it done, but had to get it done because I had to listen to my mom if I didn't, right? So I was in the same boat as you. I had people that lost homes even though we did everything correctly. One of them was a family member as well. So it's a tough business, and if we get back where we were, I would just tell you that you need to have systems in place. You need to be ready to understand exactly what has to be done day to day, and understand that every bank works differently. And that's where you really have to educate yourself, is you'll have to educate yourself on how this bank does it and how that bank does it. And when one's a first and one's a second, you're going to be doing 2 different things that don't make sense, but you still have to do it because it's a process.
So Janet, I want to ask you a question, because I think that this is where the other side of our market is. You were in the business in the late 80s when the savings and loans crisis went on, and inflation was happening and interest rates skyrocketed. What did you see happen to those low interest loans and those properties that had equity? How did they move to another market? Can you talk a little bit about that? That's when you guys started actually trading loans and assuming loans for the interest rate value.
Okay, but before I talk about that, I just want to say one more thing. Short sales and REOs are not for the faint of heart. I remember, I'm talking emotionally and not the paperwork, the negotiation. I remember the first time I walked into an REO, we were on a small office tour, and this was an REO, and the agent was so proud. I have an REO account. This was a beautiful 2-story home in Summerlin, and it was immaculate. It was clean. You could see the marks on the carpet where these people had had their carpet cleaned before they were forced to move out. And I walked in and I started crying. And then on the other side of the coin, you have these people who are angry, they're very angry, and they're stripping everything out of the house, and they're pouring cement down the toilets and the drains, so it's not for the faint of heart. So now I forgot your question.
I'll paint a different picture. So what I see that will happen, and this will go back to what she'll think about. We have interest rates right now on some loans that were 1.5%, 2.5%, 3%. And so another marketplace that we're going to see open up is the fact that I'm in this loan, and you want to buy my house, and I have 30% equity. And you have the money to buy out my equity, and I have this other loan that's sitting here, and will that lender allow that loan to be wrapped around? Like, wrap's a dirty word, right? We used to use it all the time. But the whole thing is, could I assume that loan, or could I impound that loan? And so we already have companies out there that they're making this their entire business strategy, because if I'm able as an investor to take the primary residence that I have with that great loan product, and I'm able to move it over to someone else, let's say Adams wants to buy this house and he's got money to put down, but he doesn't want to have a 6% loan, he wants a 4.5% loan. And I'm able to give him one because my loan's at 2.5. Did I just make 2% on that mortgage property? 2% on a home loan is a lot of money, right? If we're looking at a $500,000 home. And so the whole point is we're already seeing this start to cycle in this marketplace where people are trading that delta between this interest rate and that. And that was something that happened 25 years ago where they were seeing 16% interest rates. Well, who wants to have a 16% mortgage? Nobody, right? And so it's just another thing that this has happened before and it'll happen again.
Well, and it has, but the thing about it back then when interest rates were 16%, your VA loans were assumable with no qualifying. People had no equity, they got in for $1, and they ran it 3 years in time to move on. In fact, my former partner, God bless her heart, she owned half of Sunrise Mountain because we go on a listing appointment and it was a veteran seller and they had no equity, and she's like, and VA loans were assumable without qualifying, and she's like, well, I'll give you $5,000, pay all your closing costs and take over your loan. And they'd say, okay. And it was just a matter of signing a piece of paper.
Amazing.
So when she passed, she had a
Right.
sizable estate.
Always a way to make money. All right, so we're going to move to a completely different topic. This one's for our entire panel. I've got my listing on the market, and no matter what my photos look like, no matter how it's able to be shown, no matter how well I priced it, my listing has not sold. My seller's getting upset. What do I do? Call Janet, text message, buy it yourself.
Buy it yourself. Oh my God, do you remember back in the days? That's what people did. If it doesn't sell in 30 days, I will buy it.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
What was her name from Remax?
There were like three
Tracy
of them.
Donnelly. Tracy Donnelly sent a card. She says, if your house doesn't sell, I'll buy it.
Yeah, unless, I mean, at the price, blah, 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 all those things.
Yeah.
So I've got several clients that are starting to get a little bit realistic about the price points, and so they're lowering it. Again, we talked about it earlier, market's correcting, so they're not really losing a ton of money. I did an interview yesterday for Channel 3 and the same thing. I was like, you know, what happened is that you've got all of this equity that got built in because people were paying way above what current values were, and now we're sort of correcting the marketplace. And so even though sellers are listing it for less than what the current market might be, they're still getting more than they would a year ago, right? So remember that's what's happening. If you're not selling your home, do open houses, go get some buyers, right? Whether it's for that home or for other properties. Go back to the basics, start making some phone calls, start doing some circle prospecting, talk to the sellers every single week. If you're not having a conversation with your seller every single week because you don't know how to deliver bad news, you're going to be in some bad news. You have to be able to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You've got to let them know, here's what's happened in the marketplace right now. Here's what's going on with your current subdivision as far as homes are concerned. They know because they've probably got a ticker on Zillow or Realtor.com that's updating them on anything that's happening in their neighborhood. You better too, right? And so make sure that you're keeping them informed. Hey, this house just went on the market and it's $10,000. It's priced $10,000 less than you, and it's the same square footage. If you can't have that conversation with the seller, somebody will help you. One of the brokers will help you, but you have to have that conversation. And I'm not saying that lowering is the right thing to do because there's a buyer for everyone, right? A home is worth what a buyer's willing to pay for it, and what a seller's willing to sell it for. That's the ultimate, like, that's how we sell houses, right? So just keep that in mind. If there's a home that's, and every seller today, well, my house has more upgrades and it's bigger and it's on this kind of a lot, da, da, da. Cool. Do you want to sell the house for this or not? Right? That needs to be the conversation. You haven't had any showings for, and that's what we're finding too, is that there's homes right now that aren't getting any showings. I mean, 0 showings. Yep. When you look at what's going on with our inventory, right, you look days on market and you look at how many weeks worth of inventory, and this is how I tell people, like, look, if we've got 6 weeks worth of inventory, it's probably going to take about 6 weeks to sell the house. Just calm your pits.
The other thing too is that I've noticed that if you talk to your seller and you're keeping them informed about what's happening in the market and they agree to a price reduction, you need to take them away from their pie in the sky dreams on the price, because I'm signing price reduction after price reduction and they're being reduced. We're talking $500,000 homes and they're being reduced to $1,000. That's not going to attract any new buyers.
It may.
I doubt it.
But
Not an important one. Anything you want to add?
I would just tell you to think outside the box. Look, everyone's doing price reductions, right? I mean, is that a way to get the home sold? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, if you're well above the market, then yeah, you probably got to talk about price reductions. I've got 3 listings right now that are the best priced property in the neighborhood. Best price per square foot, best price overall, in even of smaller homes that are less square footage, we're still priced better, price per square foot and the price of the home, okay? And so price isn't the problem in this particular situation, there's some other problem. So I would encourage you to look at something other than just the price. It's not always just the price. We employed a strategy recently that this is one of his favorite strategies, by the way. You should do this and make sure that you send him the change orders to do it with. We reduced the price of a home by $1,000 every day. We did it for 35 days in a row, and on the 15th day, somebody bought it. Closed yesterday. So the strategy isn't that it was overpriced. The problem was we weren't getting any showings. Well, we weren't getting any showings because it wasn't getting in front of enough people enough times for someone to go, oh, I think I want to see this property. Because that email goes out every time we do a price reduction, right? So finally, enough people had seen it, we started to get a couple of showings and somebody bought it. So I would just tell you to think outside the box. Don't think down the traditional lines of real estate. Think of other ways. Daryl Braswell just had a casino night open house, right? I mean, that's outside the lines of normal real estate. Okay. But that's outside the norm, right? Do something different.
Maybe for you.
Yeah, it's out.
And going back to what Chris was talking about earlier, lease options, owner carries, like all of those are, if you understand those, they are options for your client, right? For the seller. Do not, I'm going to repeat this, do not do a lease option without talking to a broker. Those things are nasty, right? I don't want you to work on, because it's a lease agreement, it's a purchase agreement, and it's a document that ties them both together. You're probably going to get sued if you don't do that right. So make sure you talk to a broker about that. The other thing is we've got a lot of buyers internationally. Where's your mic? Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of buyers internationally as well. Got it. Internationally as well. So start looking at building some international relationships, right? Start building relationships in other states. There are people that are buying from other states. Why aren't you talking to them?
Okay, so I asked this question to set myself up because I love this question. This question I love. I love this question almost more than I love you. The point of it is that agents in this marketplace that you're competing against have never had to work very hard for the money that they earn. And they are willing to do whatever it takes to get a listing that isn't going to sell. Are you prepared in your business right now to go to a listing appointment and say, yeah, I don't need this headache. Thank you very much for the opportunity, but I'm going to go find another listing.
Yep.
I'm prepared to do that because I have had the worst sellers sometimes of things that I agreed to do that I shouldn't have agreed to do
And I put myself in a position I never should have been in, and all it did was take away from my business that was working very well. Now here, let me give you something else. If you don't have a marketing strategy when you take a listing, you're crazy, because you're going to work for whatever percentage the seller throws at you instead of showing the value. When I hear about strategies that people put in place, I think that's amazing because you're earning the dollars you're working for. And I know right now that if I hired anyone up here, I'm going to pay for the expertise and skill that they have. And so my question to you right now is, do you have a plan when the seller says, why should I pick you? Well, Mr. Seller, I'm so glad you asked that. You see, every other agent has a prayer policy. They're going to put the MLS.
The 3 Ps.
Yeah, the 3 Ps. I like mine better.
3 P listing
I love the ones that are
presentation.
like actually burying the,
Head in the sand?
No, St. Joseph.
St. Joseph, that's
yeah.
Where was I at? Anyway, their whole strategy is to take some photos, put out some information, and stick your home in the MLS and pray that it closes. I'm actually going to go find buyers for your property. How, you ask? Great question. Have you heard of phones, email, text messaging, social media, open houses, door knocking, mailers, cards, balloons, open house flyers? Anything that you can think of, I'm going to put a plan in place to market your property to buyers that aren't looking in the MLS. Would you pay more to have that type of attention to your house? The question is, would you? If you were selling your own house right now and you're a real estate agent, someone's going to do all that extra work to bring a buyer that might look at your home that might pay more, would you pay for that? Do you know an agent that does all of that? I do. I call them top producers. Because they're able to find buyers and sellers in the marketplace that will come and actually look at the property. So my whole point about this is, when a seller asks that question, it's because they're not seeing enough value, right? And there's so much that you can do to cause there to be more value. I actually have an agent in the office right now who got an 8% listing agreement because he explained to the seller all of the extra money that he's going to spend for their value and his value to sell the home. Now, what has also changed with listings?
You gotta work.
Gotta work, right? So now I would list a property and I would sell it in 2 days because that's what we told everyone on Facebook. And now the property isn't going to sell in 2 days. It's not going to sell in 2 months. It may not even sell in 5 months. How would I know that going into it?
Motivation of the seller, the price, and the.
Okay, so motivation of the seller is a big thing, right? Because that's something we used to actually care about. Do you really want to sell your home, or are you just trying to see what it's like out there, right? Have you ever taken a listing from someone with no motivation? That worked out, right? What about the research on the marketplace? Do you guys remember we used to actually track days on market? Right? It used to be numbers with 3 digits in them, right? Like it's been 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and that was all we cared about. People were like, I have a new agent, goes, what's DON? I'm like, that's Dom. Right? Funny story, I had a client that he kept saying to me, he goes, are all these HOAs so expensive? Serious, this actually happened. He goes, why are all these HOAs so expensive? And I had to hold it together during the listing presentation when he said it, HOAs, right? Because he called it HOA. But the whole point of it is that you actually have to get out in front of this and start talking to your clients about what you're actually going to do to get their home sold. One of the other things you taught me,
We've talked about this so many times.
I'm not done yet.
About a marketing strategy.
No, I'm not done yet.
Look, okay, just calm your, whatever you call it earlier. We've talked about this so many times, guys. If you have a marketing strategy, if you don't have one, you should get one. If you do have one, it should be on a piece of paper that you can hand to a client and say, this is my marketing plan, and this is what I will execute on to get your home sold. Because that's what I do to get homes sold. If you don't have that, expect the next 18 to 24 months to be quite a struggle for you.
Okay, last thing I was going to say is, before you list a home, put yourself in the position of the perfect buyer for your home. What would they be looking at on the MLS, and what is your competition? And the easiest way to do it is to take a 1 mile radius from where your property sits and put in, plus or minuses 50,000 in price, plus or minus 300 square feet, plus or minus that 1 car extra garage that you have, plus or minus your lot, whatever, and look and see what the competition is surrounding that home, and Drive around that neighborhood within 1 mile and see what the new homes look like. See how many for sale by owner signs you see. See what the expired record was for the last 6 months of homes that expired in the MLS for that area. The whole point is, if you wouldn't buy the house you're listing, nobody else is going to buy it either, unless you reduce the price $1,000 a day.
I have some announcements that I'd like to make before we're out of town.
What I said was so impactful. It made such a difference. And now, announcements.
Very good, Chris. Okay, so, a few things.
I come here every day, by the way. Every day on purpose I come here.
A few things going on. First of all, tomorrow, this is Audrey Durham's baby. It's a networking thing. It's called Realtor Happy Hour. It's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. However, tomorrow at 4, we're going to be networking, I guess, while we talk. We're also getting fall makeup tips for our very own Michonne. So, and even if you don't want to wear makeup, you can still come and network. That's tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here. Audrey's bringing Chinese food. Thursday, this Thursday, we're having a lunch and learn. We ask for RSVPs because we need to know how much food. So the lunch and learn is going to be on how to read a closing disclosure. You need to read your client's closing disclosure. I'd save more deals from having gone very carefully through what was the hood. And I had one guy who was walking. He's in title signing and he's walking, and I found a big mistake on the HUD. You need to know how to read this. Hour of your time, you get free lunch and you learn something. That's tomorrow. RSVP with noon.
Thursday.
High noon.
Thursday.
Did you say tomorrow or Thursday?
Thursday. Realtor Happy Hour is tomorrow at 4. Lunch and Learn is Thursday at 12. RSVP today, please, to Savannah at the front desk because they wanted a food count yesterday, and I'm like, Okay, Friday. Friday is our annual signature family picnic. It's going to be at the Hills Park at Summerlin. It starts at 4 o'clock. It's barbecue, the whole thing's catered. You don't have to bring a darn thing. Prosperity Lending's bringing the drinks. Bring your family, bring your kids. Don't bring your wife if you don't want to. We don't really care. Just give us a big, give us a count. RSVP with Savannah, or we might say, hey, we're so glad you're here, but you didn't RSVP, so you can't eat.
Yeah, we're not.
So,
Janet might say that.
I just might. And here's the most important thing. So Friday, October 14th is the last general membership luncheon and CE class of the year of Brandon's presidency. You are all part of the general membership. Now, starts at 10:30, troll all the vendors, get the pens and the notepads that you're gonna need till next year. Lunch, guest speaker is Terry Watson. If you have never heard Terry Watson, he is absolutely fabulous. He's an international speaker.
So funny.
After lunch, Terry Watson's doing the free CE class. It's like watching a 3-hour comedy show with a little real estate tidbits thrown in along the way. It's essentially free. It'll cost you $35 on a credit card. If you show up and sign in, you get free lunch at the Four Seasons, you get free CE, and that $35 goes back on your agent account with LVR. Now, here's the thing. Terry Watson always sells out. There's always a huge waiting list. So go to the LVR website, go to events, and the general membership luncheon and CE will come up. I advise you to RSVP today. And then one more quick thing, just a little teaser. In October, I have a lunch and learn scheduled on Airbnbs by an attorney. So, more to come on that. Okay, I'm through. Thank you, Chris.
All right, talking about tidbits, we have all of this great alcohol right here, and Sherry KK is going to come up and pull some numbers and let us know who won.
Okay, Shelley's helping me. How much did you rate? $105.
Yes.
Woohoo! Good job.
So we're around 3 something now total. We're getting to 1,000. Okay. So the next, just real quick, the next 2 meetings is going to be held by Lois, and I got to Anyway, okay, let's do the number. Let's get to the, yeah.
All right, number 13. Look at
13
13.
is Patty.
Patty!
She gets every week. I know.
Where you
She's
going?
really-
Money in
she's
there.
really Pat.
You gotta play to win, guys, just so you know, that's how this works.
What is she putting in, 50 bucks?
The Tito's.
Cheetos is out of commission. Here we go.
There we go.
Next one up is 55.
55. 55. Oh, it's Carmen. Carmen.
Carmen!
What would you like? We have tequila, we have Moscato, and we have.
Aren't you
sangria.
sweet?
Yeah. Okay, number 3. Next one up is number 20. Sorry.
Number 20. Oh, Janet.
Janet Moscato. The big sangria. Neither?
We'll drink the sangria tomorrow.
There you go. Thank you, Janet. Okay.
Okay, next one up is 41.
I love how this is really mixed up today. 41. Angela.
Angela, the
You
Moscato.
like Moscato?
Chris, can I just add really quick one last announcement?
Somebody always likes sweet.
Okay, great. So we have the video media day, or media day is going to be the 23rd, Friday the 23rd from 1 to 4 o'clock. It's going to be set up, we only have 25 slots available. It'll be in the Green Valley office. What you're going to get, it's $50 to general public, but for signature it's $25. You're going to get your headshot, you're going to get an intro video, and you're also going to get all of your social media stuff set up. So your bios, your for Instagram, for TikTok, for LinkedIn, wherever it is that you want to go. So if you're interested in getting signed up for the media day, again, there's only 25 slots available. Make sure you reach out to Beta, so we'll get you guys on that.
And let's all wish Shelley a very happy anniversary with her.
With me, 19 years. Can you believe it? That's it.
All
19
right,
years.
guys, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Make it a great week and sell something expensive that helps.